Hi, seventh grade. So I haven't done this in a little while, so you should please forgive me if I have any kind of awkward pauses or if I have to pause it and restart it for any kind of reason. Again, I haven't done this in a while, and in addition to that, I am not feeling my best today. But we are going to go through your essay outline and rough draft today so that you guys can start your essay for the giver. I'm going to go through your prompt and your outline just now, and then you guys should be able to do your rough draft out on your own. I'll do a basic run through on it, but for the most part, you have done this over and over again. And so you're pretty capable of it, and we both know that you can do it. So, but just to remind you of how to jump into this, let's get started. Okay, don't worry about this screen in front of you. This is the page that you guys are going to be looking at. I'm actually going to pull up my paper screen of it. Let's pull up this guy right now. Okay. All right, so what you guys are looking at right here is the one that's in front of you, and this is your copy. Let's make sure that is nice and clear. Okay, you guys have your prompt right here. Now, I know that you guys find these essays to be very frustrating. And you look at me and Mr. Hudson and you think that we're torturing you. And while that you might think that is the case, it's not. Part of why we do this is because when it comes to the state test, part of the way the state decides if you are ready to move on to the next grade is a writing piece. So they give you this question. Sometimes they'll give you more than one question, and it'll give you, it'll say to you in a multi-paragraph response, which is their like sneaky way of saying write an essay. And so they want to see if you're going to write an essay and if you can answer the question correctly and if you can answer it in essay form. So we want you to be able to write an essay pretty well, and then with the knowledge of what they're actually asking you and with the basics. So know that within the next month, you are going to have to write another essay when you have to do the state test. They're going to ask you that. They're going to give you a question. The question's going to say, write a multi-paragraph response, and it's going to be an essay question. You're going to have to do a constructed response, which is a race response. So when they ask you to write something short, it's a race response. You're going to have to back stuff up with evidence. So we don't do this to torture you guys, okay? We want to prep you so that when they are trying to move you from 7th to 8th grade, you're ready to go, okay? So let's practice a little bit so that you can prove it and you can go to 8th grade. All right, so let's look at the question. The question is, the two interpretations of the giver's ending are, 1, Jonas and Gabriel have truly escaped their society and discovered a real village in elsewhere, or 2, Jonas's vision of the village is only a hallucination he experiences as he and Gabriel freeze to death in the middle of nowhere. So both arguments can be supported by evidence in the text. So you need to choose one possible interpretation of the ending and argue for it using evidence from the text to support your opinion. All right, so we need to break down this prompt. So this is what you're going to do. When you're on the state test too, you need to break down the prompt and figure out, what are they asking me? what specific things am I supposed to be talking about in my essay? Okay. All right. So what do? You look in the essay and you find the action verbs. So you definitely want to look for the questions, but if you'll notice in this prompt, there are no question marks. Sometimes you'll see question marks, but in this one, there are none. So you want to look for the action verbs that tell you to do something. So if I look at my last couple of sentences, both arguments can be supported by evidence in the text. Choose one possible. So choose, that's a action verb that's telling me to do something. Choose one possible interpretation and argue for it using evidence from the text to support your opinion. Okay, using evidence from the text to support your opinion. Okay, so I see 3 things here that I could potentially write down. Now, I only give you guys 2 things here, so I need to decide what really specific things am I supposed to be doing. So choose one possible interpretation and argue for it. Use evidence from the text. So which one of these things do I think I need to go for first? Okay, so I think definitely on one side I need to choose one interpretation of the ending. Okay, choose one interpretation of the ending. And if you don't understand what I mean by that, you need to pick a side, okay? You need to choose Jonas lived, Jonas died, okay? You need to pick a side, okay? And you are going to be arguing for that side. So that's essentially the same thing. So by saying argue and choose, that's kind of the same one. And then I need to use evidence from the text to support my opinion. So use evidence to support. I probably spelled something wrong on here. I'm looking at these words and I'm thinking I spelled something wrong. Wouldn't be shocking to me if I did. Okay. All right. So now we know what we're supposed to do. We broke down the prompt. We look at this, we say, okay, I have to pick a side. I have to pick Jonas lived. I have to pick Jonas died. And I have to use evidence from the book to support why I think that. So I cannot go online and pick things from the internet to support. I can only choose things from the book to support why I think what I think. Okay? Okay. The next part of this is the brainstorm or thesis creation side of this. So if you don't remember, a thesis statement is basically like your argument sentence. It's the part at the bottom of your introductory paragraph where you're laying out your whole argument for your reader. Sometimes people will include all of the arguments, sometimes people won't. It really depends. I like to include all 3 of my arguments. It really just depends on what kind of person you are. Okay, so I'm going to pull this back up and I'm going to scroll back down here. Okay, now brainstorm thesis create. Okay, so let's test. All right, so I know that when I write a paper, let's move my I wish I could make this a little larger. Oh. Goodness, when I made that larger, it cut me out completely. Come on. There we go. Okay, so I know that when I create a thesis, I have to have two things. I have to have a claim and I have to have reasons. Okay, I have to have a claim as my main argument. Sorry guys, this is being kind of fuzzy. Come on. Can you get in here? Wow, if you haven't had me this year, this must be bringing back some memories of what it was like with Miss Compton's camera. Okay. All right. Well, I'm just gonna have to switch to. I'm gonna switch to this guy. Okay. Let's zoom in. Okay. So. All right. So, in a thesis or brainstorm, you have to have a claim and you have to have reasons. You have to have those two things. So, within a claim, I'm going to make this, I think, into a table just to make it kind of easier to kind of understand. Let's do that. We'll pop this guy over here. And we'll pop, nope, go like that. Okay, now the reason why we have, if you don't remember, the reason why we have 3 reasons is because we have 3 body paragraphs, okay? So we have 1 reason for each body paragraph. That way, when we go to write, it's very simple. We just take 1 reason and each reason has its own body paragraph. Boom, boom, boom. I will try to use my paper again because I feel like that helps me when I do my outline. But I digress. Let me come back to it. Okay, so my claim. I'm gonna say, I'm just gonna put both of them in there. So let's say one of my claims is going to be at the end of the giver, Jonas is alive because that. Now, remember, my ... that should not be included in your thesis, okay? That is just my leading in. I'm only including that right now because, why? I'm including that because yours will ultimately go into your reasons, but right now it's not touching anything. So because it's leading off, it's not touching anything. So we're just gonna leave it alone. Okay. Here's the alternate version of that. You could have at the end of the giver, Jonas is not alive because, okay. All right, so then over here, we would want to have our reasons for why we think that, okay? So what are some reasons why we would think he's alive? There's a multitude of different reasons why you could think that he is alive. He's hearing music, could be a reason why you think he's alive. It could be a reason why you think he's not alive. He is suffering from, you could say that he's hallucinating. You could think that his hallucinations, or what you think he's hallucinating, you could say that that's a reason he is alive. You could say that that's a reason he's not alive. You could talk about him being outside in the elements for so long. You could say whether or not he was exposed to the outside and what that does to a human body, whether or not somebody could survive that. So there's a number of different ways that you can go about this. Okay, so we are just going to say reason number 1, reason number 2, reason number 3. Okay, all right. You got, I don't want to give away too much here because I'm nervous that if I say too many ideas that you guys will steal them and will use them yourself. So I don't want to go too much. Okay, let me go into, hopefully my camera works on this side. I'm going to show you guys what I typically would do when I had to use, when I had to write essays. And I'm sure Mr. Hudson had to do this also when he was not only in college, but in high school as well. Maybe it'll work. Who knows? Let's see. Come on. There we go. Finally. Okay. So you guys, whether or not you decide to go to college or not, if you, let's see if I can find a good pen. Okay. So there are these certain tests that you guys will have to take if you decide to go into college. When I was in college, I also had to take these tests where I had to write very fast essays. I think I was only given 45 minutes for these essays. And so I had to write very fast outlines where I had to figure out what I wanted to write and what evidence I wanted to put in. So I'm not telling you that to scare you. I'm telling you that so that when you do the state test and they give you that piece of paper on the state test, you have to look at it and you have to say, okay, what do I want to talk about? What do I want to say? What do I want to do? Just know there is always the same structure. It always looks exactly the same, okay? There is always 5 paragraphs. You can do it the exact same way pretty much every single time. If you want to do 4 paragraphs, sometimes you can get away with that. But in general, see, and of course I messed with it. That's okay. You're going to have 4, you're going to have 5 paragraphs, okay? So I'm just going to draw those out really fast. Okay, there's my 5 paragraphs. I have my intro, my first body, my second body, my third body, and my conclusion. Now, here's the thing about these. Again, regardless of what essay you're writing, they always have the same stuff in them. It doesn't matter if you're writing an essay on the giver or if you're writing an essay on the state test. You can basically write exactly the same stuff, and as long as you fill in the same chunks, you're going to be fine. So, and I'm telling you this so that when you go ahead and you do this essay, you're going to have these same chunks. I've already prepped them for you. When you do the essay on the state test, if you remember what the chunks are, you can just fill them in and you'll be fine. So let me show you what the chunks are just automatically. So if you do this really fast as like a prep before you write your essay, you'll be ready. So in the intro, the beginning is always background info. And then you do kind of like the essay topic. So you have to explain what the topic is. So for example, our current essay topic is whether or not Jonas died. Okay, then your thesis. So notice that it gets really broad. So like it goes from the entire story to our specific part of the story to our argument about the story. So it goes really broad to really narrow. Then in our first body, we are talking about our first argument. So our first reason, okay, our first argument for why we think that, okay. Then we have evidence and we have explanation. Now, you might notice that looks like a race response. That's because that's what that is. It's a race response. That's all a body paragraph is a race response. Now, I'm going to tell you that in your outline or your rough draft that I gave you, I doubled it up because that's what it should look like. It should have two. You should have two good pieces of evidence. If you have limited time, you can just do one, but you should have two. But this just repeats, okay? So your second body paragraph, you want your second reason, your second argument for your thesis. Then you need evidence again that proves your thesis and has an explanation. Then you want your third reason, your third argument for why you think what you do. So why you think Jonas died, why you think Jonas didn't die, evidence for that, explanation for that. Again, should go back to the thesis, okay? And thesis just means argument, okay? Everything should go back to that. Then your conclusion is basically just the same thing as the introduction, but flipped upside down. So you're just saying your thesis again in different words. So you are restating the thesis. Oh, you guys can't see that. Say thesis again, new words, restate it. You're literally just saying it again. Then this gets to be the part where I like to say you kind of like connect it to the world, basically. So it's kind of the so what part of it. Like, why should anybody care about this? Why does this matter to us? And then you want to do a call to action. So now this can be a lot of things. So if this is an argument essay, it can be something like, now that you've learned this, you can go out and you can talk to your mayor and you can argue that we shouldn't have to do this. But this is something in a book, right? This is not something that really is going to affect anybody, but you can just say more along the lines of, now that you've heard my opinion, this might sway you into thinking that I'm correct. Now that you think this, next time you read The Giver, you might agree that I'm right, that Jonas does die, that Jonas did not die, that, if you see the movie, you might disagree with how the movie portrays it, right? So like different ways of ending it. But basically, if you look at this, guys, this is how every single paper is written ever. An intro, body paragraphs, and a conclusion. It doesn't matter what paper you're writing. This is how they look, okay? They all have arguments. The arguments go back to the main argument, which is called the thesis statement, and that every single part refers back to it, okay? In the conclusion, you're just reminding your readers what you said in the beginning, and you're saying, that's what I said, hope you agree with me. That's it, okay? All right, so this is called an outline. There's lots of different ways of doing it. I think last year I taught you guys how to do the Roman numeral one. This is another way of doing it. Whatever works best for you. If you want to do this part where you go through and you actually physically write out what parts you want to use, I would recommend doing that. So for instance, let's say that you're saying that Jonas died, and you're going to argue that Jonas died because the music is it shows that he's hallucinating. And what's your evidence for that? You could go, and this could be page number 220. And then you could write down quotes here. So that way you can go back to this, okay? And you can reference what you were actually supposed to be writing down. Remember that this is supposed to be essentially a race response. Each one of these. So you can use sentence starters like you would in a race response. Use things like according to the text, the reader knows, on page, on paragraph, we can conclude, this conveys to the reader. Use those words that we've taught you so that you show that you have actually learned how to talk and how to write, okay? All right, moving past that. Once you have completed those parts, you have a thesis, you have an outline, you know what your parts are going to be, okay? The next thing you're going to do is you're going to go here and you're going to start here. This should not be touched until you have a completed thesis statement and until you know what your evidence is going to be for each one of your paragraphs, okay? And remember, I asked you to do 2 for each one. Each page is a paragraph. So you'll notice this says introduction. If you go to the next one, this says first body. This one says second body, okay? And on this side, it says, what should I write? So I helped you out here. So this tells you all the different parts that you should be putting in. It tells you basically sentence by sentence what you should be writing down, okay? You are going to have to go through and you are going to have to be doing some typing out at the end. And you are going to have to do some checking of your own work so that we are making sure that we are actually writing sentences, because you guys like to type things out and not put periods or capitalized sentences, which I hope you know that is not a thing you should do. You should make sure you do that. On the state test, if you don't put a period or a capital, you don't look like you should go to 8th grade. If you spell things wrong, you don't look like you should go to 8th grade. And nothing on the computer on the state test when you write your essay is going to check that for you. So please practice double checking yourself for it. We, of course, will go through and do it, but you are only going to get so much time on this. I'm not going to tell you in this video today the time limit on this, just because I'm not sure what Mr. Hudson's going to do with his class. I will talk to my own class about our time limits here in terms of what we're going to do. But yeah, if you need any help with this, obviously we will go through it with you. But this is something that should be able to be done on your own in about, I would say, a class period, personally, if not a class period and a half. So I don't know, but I'll let Mr. Hudson decide what he wants to do with that. So, okay. Let me know if you guys need any help besides that. Give me an email if you really need some help. And otherwise, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.